Welcome to the final weekend of BSL 10. I am Nyoken, joined by Gypsy. We've got a ton of epic games coming this weekend. Starting us off is going to be 3 best of 5s this Saturday, and we're going to have Dandy versus BoA to start us off. As a Terran player, and knowing, well, not just being a Terran player, the fact that Dandy's the only remaining Terran player in the round of 6, I'm hoping he at least puts up a good showing, because once he's gone, all that's left is PvP and PvZ. And Eon Zerg's the only Zerg left. So really, it's going to be a Protoss fiesta. So I'm hoping Dandy can get at least one win on the board. It's going to be tough for him because BoA looks pretty good, especially off of last week.
Being the only Terran here up in the top 6, we were all throughout the tournament, we were questioning also, how much, where's Dandy's format, how good is he playing, etc., etc. But he has gone through the tournament with some solid games, and just in general, I think, if he gets into the groove, if he gets into a decent position in the mid game, he can play really well. But anyway, Polypoid is going to be the first map here today, guys. So let's get ready and get right into it.
So in the bottom right, in the gray, our last South American player, it is Dandy.
And in the top left in the green, the Korean Canadian player is BoA. Now, Polypoid is a favorite map of BoA. We've seen him pick this map time and time again. When he's on that, at least in the earlier rounds where he had to pick a map for from losers or whatever. BoA just always plays this map, man. So this is definitely a comfort pick for him. Now, Dandy, on the other hand, I think this is going to be the hardest map for him in the map pool. Dandy is the type of player that really does favor those 2 base plays, the more timing based plays, the more aggression. But Polypoid is really the kind of map that forces you to go 3 base, 4 bases Terran.
Yeah, you and I are in disagreement on Polypoid. I love this map. This, if I could pick one map from ladder, this is probably it. Now, as you pointed out, Dandy does like to go for 2 base timings, which is going to be a bit difficult on Polypoid, having the 3rd base high ground near impossible to attack up into. So Dandy's going to have to deviate his style quite a bit. He's definitely capable of playing, 3 base, 4 base, 5 base even. And bottom right is a good position for that. I mean, look at it. Look how close the bases are. You don't even have to move, really, to take at least 4 bases. Now, Dandy, this game, I want to point out, that Rax is not right up against his command center, which is where he was putting it every single time he went gasless. But as I say that, 12 supply has come and gone, and it looks like we're going to have another gasless play from him.
Yeah, and this is kind of the quirk from Dandy. When you see a Terran player, the only other Terran I can think of is TT1. If you think about it, TT1 is the other player that, when he operates as Terran, he does like going this Rax on his high ground into Rax expand. And to be completely honest with you, obviously, in most situations, if you're ever getting gate or forward gated here, it's just really kind of really bad. But look, actually, Dandy this time around, he's going to play with a much safer variant here. He's actually getting both Marines, and his command center is going to go down at 19. So really late command center here for Rax expand, but it is safe. The problem is that the gas with this variation here is a bit delayed, so factory is not going to be out in time, on time as usual. But for the most part, still, given the fact that BoA decided to go for a gate first, and it is cross spawns here, I think Dandy's build here is just fine.
Yes, and Holy Love coming in with the massive tip. I saw you tip at the beginning of the stream too, so thank you very much, Holy Love. Remember, we have reached our goal for BSL 11. All future tips and donations coming in is going to go directly to Zero, and he'll use it as he pleases. If you want it to go towards the BSL 11 map pool, make sure you mention in your donation that you would like it to go towards the pool. Oh my God, Caspis, thank you for the huge tip. Also, that's just amazing already. So much support coming in for the BSL, and we've just started. Now, let me tell you something that I do like from Dandy right now. You know what it is, Mihai? Can you guess what has happened in this game that hasn't happened in any of the other games?
He built a bunker? I don't know.
He did not get gas stolen. So already, this is a great scenario for Dandy, right?
Yeah, that's actually a good point.
We haven't seen this unfold yet where the build has not been devastated from the get-go.
Yeah, and this is a good sign for Dandy, I'm not going to lie. Definitely a lot of the TvPs recently that he's played in this tournament, the opening has always been disastrous, you know, to say the least. I mean, specifically just getting gas stolen and just not getting into a decent position in mid-game. But Dandy is definitely a very strong player, you know, no doubt about that. Very mechanically gifted. Just such a strong player once he gets into those situations. And I feel like just having a build here kind of get off without a hiccup is going to be really, really important for him to get to just do well in this game. Now, BoA on the other side of the map, you know, he's getting his Nexus up is actually went straight Robo and then second gate. So this Robo timing is really nice here for him. You know, we'll have to see if he goes for an observer. He does like playing with Reavers, so I wouldn't be surprised if we see a support bay go down. And for the meantime, 3 Dragoons wailing on this bunker, and Dandy has a 2 factory follow-up here. So what do you think about this, Nyokin, on Polypoid? I mean, he knows it's cross spawn and he's going 2 factory. This usually indicates like a 3 tank push.
Yeah, as you're talking about, Dandy loves to go for the 2 base play, and the fact that this is a double factory does tend to lead to some type of fast 2 base play. It could be 3 tanks, it could be vultures. There's the first tank. The real question is what comes out after this tank. Now, I didn't see any upgrades being researched, so that could be double tank coming out. Now, if he shows all 3 tanks, BoA's gonna know. Well, there's a second one. If we see a third one, we know that this is definitely going to be a heavy tank push, and now double upgrades are coming in, so it's going to be mines and speed. He really needs to not show 3 tanks. As soon as you show 3 tanks, the gig is up. We know that it's double factory. We know that it's going to be a strong push. So if he wants to kind of disguise it, you can only show 2 maximum. Now, smartly, BoA turns around because he doesn't know what Dandy's going for. This could be proxy factory. This could be starport. So I like the fact that he turned around, but as I say that, now he's coming back in and he's just going to hover around this high ground.
Yeah, I don't know. You know, again, the first game jitters are going to be here for both players. Definitely a high pressure situation. I think BoA did get to see the 2 tanks. He knows what's up right now. I mean, he sees those units, I think, the Marines and the tanks pushing out. So he'll have to meet this. He's actually just going to dive on top of these tanks, which is really good for him. There's no vultures here to protect. Usually you want to have mines with this push, but BoA killing the tanks for free, and now he's only going to have to contend with Marine Vulture. Now, the Vultures can be really annoying. Like, they have speed, they have mines, and actually, okay, oh my god, that mine actually almost went up. Dandy does get into the base with 2 Vultures, though, and this is going to do a lot of damage.
Yeah, even though his tanks and Marines get denied, he did manage to wipe out all of the goons almost. He's got vultures into the main of BoA. Didn't look like it killed that many probes, maybe like 3. But all of those probes are not mining right now. Also, it's delayed his Reaver timing. So even though Dandy kind of got wiped out right there, I think this was a big win, especially now. Okay, now the probes are going back into mining. You can see the supplies, 56 to 54, and BoA lets 2 more vultures into his natural. And this is what we were talking about. Some of the downfalls of BoA's play is that he tends to get picked apart quite easily by some harassment. Now, behind this, Dandy following up with more factories as expected. That looked like 4. So this is kind of not not committed, and we see why, because the command center is already done, and that was built almost instantly after the first few vultures came out. Now, this could be a bit dangerous because it's going to leave him a bit, you know, extended. It might be hard to deal with Reavers if a Reaver gets into the base, but I love that extra turret going up near his mineral line. A lot of Protoss players will just be like, oh, well, I can tank one turret and just run through. But once he gets in and he sees that second turret, he's not going to be able to have any pathway out. So the Reaver's going to be stuck. He's going to have to deal a lot of damage. Now that Observer came in and spotted both turrets, so that's nicely done. Look at how many turrets Dandy has built for this, but I think that's definitely worth after all the damage he's done.
Yeah, he definitely has done a significant amount of damage here, and all these turrets are going to deny this shuttle. Now, shuttle speed is up and running, though, so we'll have to see if BoA chooses to play super aggressively with this shuttle or not. A couple of vultures coming in here for Dandy, once again, just being really annoying. It's so hard for Protoss to deal with vultures just in general in this matchup. That unit is absolutely obnoxious. BoA, though, is getting his third base a bit delayed compared to Dandy's, which is a result of the early vulture run by. And honestly, I mean, BoA is definitely not in a good situation here. His third is slower than the Terrans, and he doesn't really have tech to compensate. BoA is actually going to run in here with a couple of zealots. It is only 4 tanks, so this Reaver... Oh my god! The Reaver did so much work, but the goons get splattered by one mine. And suddenly, that was disastrous there for the Protoss player. Unfortunately, now BoA is only on 4 gate, just now transferring probes, and really, he is in a bit of a pickle, Nyokin.
Yeah, we always talk about how hard it is for Terran to push up into Protoss, but it's equally hard for the Protoss player. And I love how Dandy, I think, had a mine even put under that barracks while it was floating, so you couldn't see it. Yeah. The goons got wiped so fast. The Reaver, I thought, okay, wow, it's not going to deal much damage. But once it got into that sweet spot between all 4 tanks, all of a sudden my mind was completely changed. But the mine connection, like we just saw right there, dealing tons of damage, wiping out multiple goons. This is like the third. More vultures into the natural. Dandy's friggin' everywhere, and I didn't even see it. And behind this, the thing I'm most concerned about for BoA isn't necessarily the probe kills. It's that huge block of blue that just went up in Dandy's base.
Yeah, the factory's coming up here. And that is a lot of factories, Nyokin. Now, on this map, Terran does have the option, you know, it doesn't look like the armory's spinning, so upgrades are going to be delayed a bit, but it doesn't really matter. If you take a look at, honestly, Dandy's supply lead here, 30 supply, is just absolutely massive in this matchup, and the fact that he killed so many probes, the fact that his base is up, his third base was up much faster than Protoss's, and also the fact that Protoss lost a bunch of units in the early game is setting up the Terran for basically a killer push here. Doesn't even need to think about taking a 4th base. It's going to be so easy for him to just move across the map, and still you can see here Protoss is going to struggle with these vultures because we saw Dandy's already up to like 8 factories. Meanwhile, the Protoss really is still only on 4 gates, most likely trying to get his Stargate going, his Arbiters incoming, but he just won't have time for this. And you know, you can see BoA running around with the shuttle trying to get something done, but because Dandy invested so much into that turret defense, he's actually quite you know, he's basically very defensible against shuttles, against drops. And he even layered his turret defense. You know, he has two turrets everywhere, anticipating kind of double shuttle, triple shuttle gameplay. But, you know, it doesn't really matter because BoA is just so far behind from the opener that Dandy is going to come in here with this push, and it's going to be so hard for the Protoss to stop it.
Yeah, I don't see how this can be stopped. There's more tanks than there are goons right now. There's no supporting cast either. The only way I see BoA winning this fight is Reaver on high ground, and Terran loses vision of the high ground somehow, and Reavers just get tons and tons of damage without taking any shots back. Now, tanks are already sieged up. Dandy's going for it. Like, it's 10 tanks. Look at the thing here. How the Reaver can't even unload without insta-dying just like that. And Dandy's going to take game 1 easily.
Yeah, and just a very, very easy game there from Dandy. I'm not going to lie, Nyokin, but this doesn't look promising for BoA. I mean, losing that first game like that just easily, you know, Dandy didn't really even do anything. He just kind of ran the vultures in, and BoA completely kind of froze up. We saw the probes not mining. We saw a bunch of probes dying. The build was completely jacked up from that point on, despite the fact that BoA essentially got on top of the tanks for free. You know, when that happens, usually Protoss is in such a good spot. If you do that 3 tank push and the Protoss just instantly snipes all your tanks, there goes all your momentum, because, you know, all it takes is for a couple of Dragoons placed neatly in those pylon walls, and, you know, you completely defend that. Now, the problem there really for BoA also was that his units were so far up on Polypoid, and, you know, Protoss only has a limited amount of Dragoons, right? Especially because he went for 2 gate, and most of the Dragoons were out. So even if he stopped that push like we saw, there was no Dragoons back at his base to defend against the Vultures. So, you know, also kind of like strategically a bit off there in terms of, like you said, Nyokin, you know, it was smart for him to back off, but then he kind of stayed there, which you kind of want against a push, but you kind of don't want against Vultures. But kind of such an easy win there for Dandy, honestly, in terms of the best of 5 situation, right? Like when you're in this situation, high pressure situation, there's nerves on the line and stuff. If you get that first win in your belt like that easily, it's just such a boon for the rest of the series.
Let me just say this. This is the Dandy I've been waiting for, because that looked like what I face on the ladder when I play Dandy. It's just an overwhelming amount of units in your face all the time.
Yeah.
And this is probably why Bonnet and DeWalt Gas stole him every game. Because even though he got his 3 tanks shut down, this is what he does. He's a monster once he gets going. Like, he's not someone that will sit there and wait for 2-1. He knows the damage that he's done. It's time for you to die, and that's what he did. He just built up 10 tanks. Moved, really, he didn't even need siege in that fight. So Dandy looked really strong on Polypoid. Now, we were pointing out that we like BoA on that map. Now, I, of course, think that Dandy's going to be strong on Polypoid, but now I have a feeling we're going to be on Eclipse again, and this could be another situation where Dandy gets gas stolen, and we're not going to have him rolling right from the get-go.
Yeah, we'll have to see. Well,
oh, Bubbles!
Like you're wrong, Nyokin. It is going to be Bubbles. We haven't seen Bubbles too much, but this is going to be really exciting here. So game 2, Dandy versus BoA.
So in the red in the top left, looking really deadly, it is Dandy.
And in the blue Protoss, bottom left, kind of in a pickle here, it is BoA.
So after a loss like that, where you just, I mean, it was not close. Let's just say it like that. If that happened to you, what's going through your head? Are you thinking like, okay, I need to do something ridiculous? Are you not worried about it because you took a lot of damage in the early game? What do you think is the move here from BoA?
Yeah, I really don't know, man. This is possibly one of the worst situations to be in when you lose that first game for free. Now, in my experience, because I'm insane, crazy person, I've had games like that where, you know, I'm in a tournament setting. First game is a complete disaster. It's actually really frustrating. And it's a loss like that. It kind of gets my it gets my jitters away. You know, I go on this like soft tilt mode where I'm like, you know what, I'll just play my game and just do whatever. And after that, it's smooth sailing. But we'll have to see BoA, the kind of player that he is. You know, I feel like there's pros and cons to these early jitters. Personally, if I were him, I would just be like, you know what, that was a terrible game. Move on to the next game. Let's just do my best. You know, it can't get any worse than that one. So we'll have to see here, though. Being down 1-0 already is terrible. But this time around, oh my god.
I can't believe it.
The one game that BoA actually opens forward gate here. Dandy mixes it up and gets the gas out. But, you know, to be completely honest, he probably would have went for this gas as soon as the probe came in here.
Yeah, definitely a likely scenario. I think that BoA, I think if I was BoA in this scenario, I probably would have gone for proxy gate. So to see a forward gate, I'm not too shocked. I mean, it's almost the same thing. So him and I are thinking along similar wavelengths here. Now, Dandy going for the 12 gas, I'm shocked. It's taken, what, like 8 games for him to finally go for a 12 gas. And I'm not, like I said, I'm not surprised by this move from BoA. And especially after seeing gasless again, you'd have to be thinking like, okay, does this guy just have one opener? Like, do I just rally zealots to this guy every single time? And that's just going to be the flat out the best opener every single time versus him. So I think this is also a smart move from BoA. Now, I do see that the probe has moved to the top side. There we go. Now, this doesn't mean that this is going to be proxy Robo. This doesn't mean it's going to be proxy Citadel. For those of you that are stuck in B rank, this a lot of the time means it's proxy 3-gate. So this could be a scenario where it's mass goon man. I'm curious to see what the follow-up is going to be from BoA. I think this is going to be Citadel, really.
Yeah, I don't know. This is really kind of weird here. I think it's going to be a proxy Robo. I haven't really seen him do anything else. Oh, it is going to be Citadel. Wow, you're a god. The Zealot is actually getting so much damage, though. Like, every Marine is huge here because... and actually only gets 1 Marine, so that was really good from Dandy. Obviously, every Marine is huge because essentially Terran has to keep producing Marines if he loses them. Now, we'll have to see here, Dandy, if he had the wherewithal to check the Protoss main and count the pylons. Obviously, at this point, Protoss should be up to 3 pylons. So, you know, if he runs around here, sees only 2, also maybe sees that the core isn't spinning, because it's not, right? It's not spinning, so this is the biggest tell ever. I mean, he should... You know, the thing is, there's these 2 Zealots up in the front just wailing on the Marine Vulture composition here, and, you know, not gonna lie, but in the midst of all of that, not quite sure if Danny had the attention to check the core, but this should be so obvious at this point because he only saw 2 pylons in the main. He obviously... The core not spinning is a dead giveaway, this... CV, where is it going? It might be going top right, to be honest.
Oh my gosh. It could be just a misclick. He could have mistakenly clicked too far to the right. What I love that BoA did was he sent his probes to attack that SCV while Dandy was dealing with the Zealot. So if Dandy wasn't paying attention...
Oh, the Vulture!
It's gonna go. But I don't even think it matters because Archive is done. Mines aren't started. eBay's not started. I mean, he sees it, but this is also proxy. Like, DTs are instantly in your base with this build. So I don't know. Okay, we've got a floated rack. So I'm curious how this is going to... Okay, he's just going to try and float it. Now, this is a genius move. He's going to wall off completely. So at least he's not going to die here. And to see 3 gates and all your tech up there, that's a big investment. If there was no proxy gate, this is not a huge investment. But to spend the extra 300 minerals, that's a big deal. I love this from Dandy. He's not going to die. And he's going into a harassment base build.
Yeah, 2 factory starport is there to just pump out the vultures to put into the dropship, honestly. So we'll have to see how that works. It is interesting, an interesting approach from him. BoA is not actually targeting these depots as fast as he should be, and he could be killing the SCV. But this is a huge investment from BoA with basically 3 total gates here. It's going to be hard for him. Well, that being said, I mean, BoA is already expanding. And, you know, the usual play here is to double expand as Protoss, but he must have noticed here that Dandy essentially canceled his command center. It's going to be hard for him to actually scout the main out. So probably 2 factory starport is not really at the back of his mind. I think he might be assuming that there's a command center being built on the high ground, though if that was the case, the DT might have probably spotted it just by poking up there. So, you know, I'm kind of worried here because if BoA does choose to double expand, which is usually the follow-up for 1-base plays as Protoss, it's just going to get picked apart by dropships. But if he chooses to stay on this 2-base play and go straight into Arbiter, I think he's going to be in a really good spot. Oh, look at that.
BoA already has a couple goons in position. He knows that, well, what's the move from Dandy? It's got to be some type of 2-fact timing. Also because the DT is up on the high ground, he saw that there's no command center, like trying to be floated down. So he knows that this is either 2-fact or it's drops, or there's an SCV hidden out on the map somewhere with a hidden base. So really the only thing that BoA's not accounting for is the hidden base. So everything so far, very nicely done from BoA. Now here comes the dropship. DT not going to intercept it. 3 goons are already in position, though. I didn't see if his vultures have speed. So
I don't
really think this is going to do much damage.
Yeah. This is really good from BoA, and I'm surprised he actually fished this out because, okay, the dropship's going to come here. No speed on the vultures. They do have mines, though, and BoA reacts a bit slowly here, so they do get to burrow a couple of mines. Oh my god, that one mine was actually good for BoA because it killed 2 of the vultures, and really, this drop got completely stuffed, and all of a sudden, Dandy is in a really bad spot, and let me tell you something, this was actually quite impressive here from BoA to read this situation out, because, look, the reality is that he scouted 2 tanks, right? Like, 2 tanks were at that wall. He didn't really see anything else, so to kind of assume that there might be a dropship coming in here with like 4 vultures, like a really kind of scary dropship, and have most of your units in your base and not go for a double expand was just genius play here from BoA. Really excellent read of the situation. And really, I mean, that's just going to put him in the driver's seat now. Look at how slow this expansion is from Terran. Now, it is hard to just straight up end the game as Protoss when the Terran sticks to 2 base, and we see here BoA is actually opting to go for the Stargate, and you know, the reminder is that BoA does have, this Nexus was very late, and not just that, but he does have a lot of buildings at 12 o'clock that are going to be essentially kind of useless at this point. So, you know, the game's not over, but Protoss is in a really good position here.
Not over, but unless these drops can get in and deal a decent amount of damage like they did last game. Well, last game did a lot of damage. Here come those vultures setting up some mines, but nice reaction from BoA, only losing 2 probes so far. But the goons are taking a lot of damage to the mines, and now the vultures are dealing quite a considerable amount of damage. Maybe, what was that, 6 probes, including 2 goons? This is the type of damage that Dandy needs. Now, he's still down 20 supply. He still doesn't have his command center up and running. That's hurting him a ton. If it was up and running, I think he would be in a good position, but because it's not running and there's a DT just laying and waiting, so that's going to delay it even longer. Still think BoA's in the driver's seat. Also, Dandy saw the Stargate, so he's going to know the timing of an Arbiter if that's going to be the tech choice.
Yeah, I don't know, Dan. I feel like this is the kind of game that Dandy just does so well in, right? Like, it's all going to be about his harassment. It's all going to be about his aggression here. And he does have a map to enable that, given the fact that the rush distances between the 2 bases are quite small. And, you know, look, BoA is falling apart to these harassments. I mean, every drop that comes in here and kills 3-4 probes, that was 4 probes already, it is paying off in droves. And quickly you see the supply differential here kind of tightening up. And the more Dandy is successful with these drops, despite the fact that, you know, obviously his expansion was super late, I mean, it doesn't really matter if he kills probes. So we'll have to see here if BoA can actually defend against the non-stop harassment. I will say this, you know, thankfully BoA didn't go for a 3-base type play because the game probably would have been over by now. So definitely paying off the decision to go 2-base is, but like, you know, we'll have to see, man. Honestly, this is not out of reach for Dandy, not at all.
Yeah, and Dandy's feeling confident enough that he is pushing. Now, remember, we saw a push from Koget, 2 weeks ago, and he was talking about how he couldn't build turrets until he got across the bridges. Now, I don't know if Dandy listened to that interview, but he may be in for a rude awakening if he thinks he's going to turret contain right outside the bridges. Now, here he comes. He's picking off so many goons, and now he's going around the left side. Remember, that is one of the intricacies of bubbles, that there's double ramps. Now he's in siege range. He's going to take out another goon, but that's a lot of zealots already.
Oh, he has speed lots too. That upgrade is so important here, and it's going to allow him to get on top of these tanks and really bust this initial push. And the shuttle just drops on top of the back tank. So really clinically done here from BoA. I thought for sure BoA was in such a dicey situation, but somehow did not forget to get speed upgrade. You know, obviously, you know, Protoss don't forget to get speed upgrade, but they do delay it as much as possible, especially when going these Arbiter builds. But this time around, essentially, Bo already had those Zealot legs there, and oh my god, that pylon wall was sick. But honestly, that was surprising from Protoss, just completely smashing that push.
Yeah, the tanks really did not deal the damage that you were expecting. All of them grouped up the Zealot Bomb, and this is what I was waiting for. If he had combo drops while doing that attack, I think it could have been devastating to the probe line. Probably would have been a really late reaction, but as played, he's still getting a lot of vultures. He sees the first Arbiter has come out, and that's not going to be what you want to see as a Terran player, especially since he hasn't even taken his nat gas. That's gonna mean that the tank count cannot be rebuilt that quickly. Another huge mine connection hitting, what, 3 goons at the bottom. They don't end up falling, but a lot of health damage or shield damage being taken down. But that's the issue right there. No gas at the natural. Dandy's floating 400 gas, but once that's burned, he's not going to be able to really support these 5 factories that he has up and running.
I mean, there's no late game plan here from Terran. There's no upgrades coming. There's no extra base. There's no extra factories. This is completely all in, and this is the last push really from Dandy. I mean, the Arbiter's already out. There's only 2 tanks here for Terran. The mines are going to do work in terms of screening the Protoss army, but here comes the shuttle. It's just going to drop on top of these tanks, and the Dragoons are going to come from the south side with the Zealots leading the charge. Arbiter overhead, overlooking the battle, and this is going to be basically game over here from Terran once this push dies out. Protoss has so much to work with. Arbiter slowly getting energy. Now, Dandy does sneak in here once again. This is signature Dandy. He always gets in with vultures. He's always doing damage, and this is a massive amount of damage. It's killing like 10 probes at least. So that's going to delay BoA's economy, and obviously Protoss is not that rich. This game's still only on 2 base, but honestly, Dandy has essentially lost like 40 supply worth of units in the last like minute here. And despite the fact that he did do a significant amount of damage to the economy, being on 5 factory with 2 add-ons here, it's going to be hard for him to rebuild an army. But I guess BoA can't really end the game just yet.
Well, he may not be able to end it right now. I think there would be a possibility. He's going to go for a recall, but if he had gotten off a stasis, I mean, he knew that there's no gas mining. So really, how many tanks can this guy be building at a time? He probably could have shut down half the tank count as played. He's going to go for the recall. Nothing in the main. No turrets set up. No mines. Even if there is an upgrade being started, okay, there is, it would be probably instantly picked off by this recall. You can see Dandy scrambling to get, there goes the army. It's already gone. Tanks trying to come back. He's got a lot of tanks coming out despite having such low gas income, but that might be a command center falling too.
Yeah, if the command center goes down, I mean, it's going to be so hard. This drop, though, counter drop, is doing so much damage, and honestly, there's a world where, okay, the command center does go down, but there's a world where essentially BoA loses his entire recall here, and also loses his entire essentially economy at the main, and suddenly he won't have any more units. Like, look at the supply, it's getting closer here. Dandy, I'm assuming, probably has more workers at this point, but I don't know, Nyokin. This is becoming a really scrappy game. More vultures into the natural here for BoA, and BoA is really just getting completely picked apart by this harassment.
Yeah, I don't see an observer either. So if he keeps laying mines at this nat, this nat is pretty much denied. So it evens up the score essentially, since Dandy's no longer mining in the main. Probes are falling left and right. Look at the supply, 69 to 60. And remember, 8 of the supply is in double arbiter. So really, this is a very even game. If Dandy didn't lose his command center,
yeah,
I think I may even favor him. Sure, he doesn't have upgrades. Sure, he's going to have a tough time fighting the Arbiter, but he's going to be able to rebuild his army much faster, and that's going to be a dead Arbiter.
I don't know, Nyokin. I mean, if it weren't for that command center, I think this would be Dandy's game at this point. Like, even if Protoss has Arbiters going, it's just really hard to rebuild that probe count. And Dandy, though he did lose his command center, he didn't lose any SCVs, but obviously losing the command center is going to set him so far behind that probably it's it's going to be almost impossible to come back from. BoA is still choosing to go for these recalls, and I really kind of question this decision. Like, why not just try and take a third base and save the energy for stasis. Now, the problem with taking a third base is that he just has such low probe count. This Arbiter is just going to go straight in on top of these tanks, and that's not too many units, and like 4 Dragoons evaporate as soon. Oh my god, complete disaster there from BoA, and honestly, man, I'm having a bad feeling here for Protoss. I think that was the nail in the coffin, because look, the reality is Dandy is up like a crazy amount of workers. So once he starts mining his main, I think his econ's going to completely outscale the Protoss at this point.
That could very well be the case. We see supplies have plummeted for BoA. Command Center still not up and running just yet for Dandy, but it's gonna be going up pretty soon. He's feeling confident enough that now he's starting to take down the tech building. So that's gonna be Citadel and Templar Archive falling pretty soon. Of course, he's not building Templars, but that's gonna nullify Storm potential for quite a long time. Still double Arbiter already out for BoA despite losing 2 Arbiters. Third one gonna be coming out pretty soon. Now, even though Dandy has what we think is a worker lead, doesn't mean that he will necessarily capitalize on it, right? Like, it's hard to read, it's hard to figure out where you are in the game, in a game like this, as either player. We do see that BoA is about to mine out in his main, and that's going to be very dangerous for him, because that's going to put him back on 1 base mining. Third base still not up for him.
I mean, the problem is that Protoss has essentially... Protoss no longer has the time to scale their economy past the Terrans. You know, even if BoA would be like, I'm going to take a third base now and a fourth base, even like before that disastrous recall, if he would have decided to go for a third base, fourth base type play, or at least just a third base, it's just such a low tempo move from the Protoss player, and just takes so long to build that probe count up. Whereas Terran already has the worker count, so all they have to do is put down a command center and then transfer those workers, and they're at crazy econ. Like, BoA lost way too many workers this game, and every drop, every single vulture run by that killed probes just inched Dandy back into it. And at this point, I truly believe that the game is lost for Protoss. I don't think these Arbiters are going to be able to make up the difference here in economy. You can see Dandy just now, he's going to pass BoA in supply. BoA is never going to have the resources to get another Nexus at this point. He's trying to desperately produce out of these 5 gateways, most likely, because, you know, I mean, he needs to keep making units, or else he's just going to die. Yeah, I mean, it looks like Zero actually thinks the replay is broken. I'm not quite sure that we do have first person from these 2 players, so we'll have to see.
Yeah, it does look broken, because third base I find to be unlikely that it's not taken at this point, and also there being 1 single tank outside of the bridges. A very weird scenario, so unfortunately it's going to be broken. Well, in this scenario, I think we should leave the game, because if we continue to sit here and either player GG's, well, then we know the result, right?
No, well, no, because then we have to wait for the... Well... Yeah, maybe we can just change the scene, right? Like, we can just change the scene and stay in the game.
Okay. We can do that.
Yeah, so we're gonna have a quick impromptu Gypsy American podcast here. Really unfortunate that happened again, and you know, Dandy and BoA, they don't actually... I think it's much easier they don't actually stream that much, so that's why we don't have their first person views here this time around. Haven't set that up with Zero, but definitely later today, when we have players like all the European players, I think we're gonna have the first persons for them. But yeah, I mean, that game was looking really... I mean, who knows what happened that game at this point?
Seriously.
Like, we don't even know when the replay broke, but that is such a close game, man.
Yeah, I thought for sure Bo was just gonna walk all over him, and then he kills the command center. I'm like, well, how does Terran recover? And then the vultures just deal infinity damage, just insane harassment from Dandy. Like
I've been playing some Protoss these days on my random my Protoss account. Let me tell you, PvT is the hardest matchup I've ever played. And then the other thing is, turns out if you lose probes, it's really bad for you, man, and it's really annoying dealing with vultures. The thing is, if Protoss never gets their econ going, if they're not scaling past the Terran, they're donezo. And I honestly feel like Bo is getting to that situation where I think that's why he was going for the recalls too, because he felt like even if I sit here and take an expansion, then I mean Terran's still on 2 base economy with a lot of SCVs mining, and then they're gonna get up to like 130 supply. And even if I take a 3rd base, am I gonna have the time to saturate that 3rd base to be able to get a 150 supply army out to meet the next push? And I feel like maybe he felt pressured in that sense, though the reality is he did have like 2 arbiters, and if he would use stasis, that would definitely be a good equalizer. So really kind of scrappy game there. I have no idea who's going to win that game, but we'll have to see. Obviously, as soon as the game is over, I think we're probably going to host the replay, even though then the players have to wait for us to watch the games. It's going to be... Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I off-raced this Protoss, a few months ago or a year ago. And I don't know about Protoss vs. Terran being the hardest, but my experience was similar in the sense where, as a Terran player, whenever I do a timing, I don't know, I just don't have success with it. But then when I played the other side as Protoss,
yeah,
like, oh look, this 3 tank attack is super deadly. So when I face a Protoss player that just stops it so easily, I'm like,
how?
Make it look so easy, man. Like, Dragon, the Zerg player / Protoss player on ladder, he off-raced me as Terran. I was like, wait a minute, doesn't this guy play Protoss? So anyways, he knows some of the weak points of Protoss. So I played him like twice. Both times he just did like a 3 tank pressure build. I can't remember if he did like a 10-10-10 build, but like he's just at my base and I'm like, wait a minute, I have like 2 goons actually, and I'm just dead.
Yeah, it turns out Terran's actually a really good race, and Protoss kind of sucks, but we'll have to see.
One of the things about Terran timing attacks is like you have to have made a decision to go for it early. It's not like, oh, I did a bunch of damage to the probes and then I'm now going to build factories. Like you need to have already been doing it, because Protoss, with their gateways and the gateways not costing gas, they can rebuild their goon count or build a shuttle and sell it and be ready for the follow-up attack. Like Terran needs to be like, I've already decided to go for it, in my experience as a Terran player. So that is one of the reasons, or one of the things that I think is hard about making timing attacks work as Terran. But like I said, playing it from the Protoss point of view, it's kind of like, how do I even, like vultures, they don't even have to necessarily connect with their mines. They just sit in the front. They deal full damage to shields. So even though they're weak versus goons, they eliminate all the shields instantly. They're soaking up all the hits and the tanks don't die. It's crazy how strong they actually are.
Yeah, and I mean, I think just in general, like Dandy's playstyle, that type of really kind of crazy hyper aggression in TvP, it's actually really hard to deal with as Protoss. And once Sabbath with the big tip
Fuck
here,
Donald Trump.
Once the vultures start getting in there, and once if Protoss ever kind of starts faltering and starts losing probes, it gets so incredibly hard, especially if you lose probes. Because the reality is, like, you're playing versus a timing attack, right? So you're like, okay, I got to start cutting probes. I got to add gateways. And then in that situation, if you're getting dropped and you're losing probes while cutting probes to get your infrastructure up, then that's when it starts snowballing. Because, Terran doesn't really need to cut too many SCVs really to make timing attacks work, to be completely honest with you. If anything, I think when you cut SCVs for timings, they're just not that good at all. So, yes. Okay. So apparently will be enough of these two clowns here talking about their Protoss experiences, but we're gonna get into the replay, I believe, and we're probably gonna be watching this on a bit of a faster speed here because, again, we do have a lot of games to play today, and they're all being played live. So, it's important for the players, as my camera's like kind of out of focus for some reason. Phasing out of reality, Nyokin. Back into the game here, 18 minutes in. Some more drops happening. This is, I think, after the disaster recall, right?
Yeah, and as you pointed out, the worker difference is heavily in favor of Dandy. It's 40 to 25.
Yeah.
Mined out in the main for BoA, mined out in the main for Dandy. Now, what Terran can do that Protoss can't do is he could just float his command center to top middle. He doesn't have to spend the 400 resources. There's vultures going to the natural. Okay, he does build a command center. Doesn't have to, though. Nicely done with the Arbor with multiple goons to make sure that that doesn't get in. And this looks like a super dire situation for BoA. At least we know he has double Arbor. So if there is an attack, he can get off multiple stasises. But other than that, everything looks like it's going to be Dandy favored. And I'm noticing on the map, still no third base for BoA.
Yeah, I mean, this is like a very, like I said, man, this is looking really bad for Protoss. I mean, the Terran army is just so incredibly strong that you do need a supply advantage to actually be able to deal with it. And the reality is BoA does have a couple of arbiters here, so definitely could rely on stasis to win this fight. But I think the econ advantage here is so strong for Dandy that I think he can almost basically make pure vulture and outscale the Protoss army. So, when you get into that situation where vultures are good enough to just kill your army because your economy is so behind as Protoss, then you're in trouble. And this is really all that Protoss has. I mean, it's still a decent force here, but basically I think Dandy has just too much here. And because Dandy's taking this third base, I mean, BoA can also take his third base. We'll see. EMP actually lands on top of the Arbiter, so even the trump card here from Protoss is not going to be enough. And with Dandy securing his third base and BoA securing his third base, the reality is BoA just doesn't have as many workers, so he's not going to be getting as much benefit from this.
Yeah, I think the play there for Dandy was to stasis those units as they moved onto the ramp, and then he could potentially get into position and kill that command center before taking any losses. With the EMP coming in, of course, that nullified everything. I see Dandy did have some vultures at the bottom side of the map, was not able to really intercept the probes, takes out a couple, one or two there. Oh, now he catches the probes. That's going to be 3, 4 probes now falling. So nicely done from Dandy. And again, he's still almost up 20 workers. He's up 15 supply. The only thing that he doesn't have is, I guess, the upgrades. Maybe he's at +1. But he's slowly building his tank out. And BoA has a lot of gas, but no money. And remember, he lost his Templar archive. So this 1,500 gas cannot go into Templars and Storm.
Yeah, I mean, this game is just so incredibly hard from Protoss's perspective. Specifically, the worker deficit. I mean, you just never have time to rebuild this at this point. Like, you would basically need a minute or two. And the thing is, building 20 workers or whatever it is to try and at least even out the worker count. I mean, 20 workers, that's like 1,000 minerals right there. Where are you going to get 1,000 minerals from? And that's actually a sick recall, but the 6 Dragoons just completely get splattered there. The Zealots get cleaned up, and I'm assuming this is probably the last play here from Protoss. He is going to GG soon after that didn't work. But, I mean, given the fact that this game has been so scrappy, maybe he's going to still stick around. He did get all those SCVs, though, at the mineral line, which, we saw the SCV count actually get halved there. But now the army from Dandy is coming out, and it's going to be really hard to stop.
Yeah, there's no goons left over. There's, 7 Zealots? Okay, that's actually more than 7. He's got about a control group of Zealots, 5 goons. Now, we saw what BoA could do with the shuttle to be able to stop the tanks, but now with more vultures supporting the tanks here, he also has the vessel. We don't know if he has D-Matrix, but there's just not enough. Wow, that is so many tanks in the back. Just 16 of them just coming out of nowhere. And Protoss army gets eviscerated. I guess EMP went off too because that Arbiter has no more energy. And this is going to be most likely Dandy pushing to a victory once he wipes out bottom middle. BoA, I don't think is mining really at his nat.
No, he is not. I mean, this is it. It's really just, this is it, Nyokin. The big killer move. BoA GG's, so. Yeah. The caster curse. I mean, I guess our predictions here is going to be completely toppled unless BoA can somehow mount an insane comeback down 0-2. It's just not looking likely, especially after these games. I mean, the first game was a complete disaster, and even the second game, BoA just kind of, you can tell, you know, when someone goes for the build that BoA did, and that he didn't even try to hide it in terms of the DT rush, right? Like he didn't fake range at his core. He kind of just straight up made a bunch of gates and Citadel and Templar proxy, and didn't even make units out of his gateways really. Kind of just hoping, rolling the dice that this DT will just kill your opponent. If you're already in that mindset in this series, it's so hard to bounce back from that.
Yeah, BoA's definitely in trouble because I'm sure he was thinking in the first game, I just wiped the 3 tanks and the 2 vultures immediately. Sure, he lost his 5 goons, but he shut down the attack like it was nothing, and then vultures killed him. Now we have a similar scenario where he's shut down Dandy in the early game. He knew that it was a 2-fact at least. Don't know necessarily whether it's dropped because he got the DT up there. He knows there's no command center. He knew that drops were coming. Remember, the drop came in, a mine killed 2 of the vultures.
Yeah.
And he still took tons of damage. So not going well for BoA today. Let's see if he can bring it back in game 3. Otherwise, his BSL is over. And we're going to find out on our next map, which is Sylphid. In the bottom left, I think stealing a game away with really nice harassment, it is Dandy.
And in the bottom right, up against the ropes, down 0-2. This is BoA in the blue Protoss. On Sylphid now, what do you think? So Sylphid is, in my opinion, a pretty decent Terran map for TvP. But at the same time, if there's a map where Dandy's early game gets shot, it's definitely this one.
Yeah, I'm torn between 2 things here. If I'm Protoss, I'm either early scouting and gas stealing this guy.
Yeah.
Or I'm 12 Nexus, because this guy has shown that he does not want a 12 gas. And if you don't want a 12 gas, well then, just give me the 12 Nexus for free. So that's what I want to see from BoA. Either we're sending out an early pro, which we're not doing now. So I'm hoping that this is going to be 12 gas, but as I say that, there goes the gate. Everything looks pretty normal. So now it just comes down to how does Dandy want to play. Now this might be, I was like, this might be the first time he puts his barracks at the natural, but not going to be the case.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know about the 12 Nexus on this map. Even if you go for whatever, the non-gas build, like, half the time you're scouting the Protoss first. And when you scout the Protoss first, you don't even need vultures to kill the Nexus, honestly. So I think, especially on a map like Sylphid, where the rush distances are actually quite short, you know, it's very rare to actually see Protosses go for 12 Nexus, just like it's rare to see Terrans go for the barracks expand. And this time, Dandy, yet again, going for that 12 gas that he showed last game. So really, this whole tournament, you know, we keep talking about how he does favor the Rax expand build, and he has that quirk of having the Rax in his main all the time, which means that he would generally be susceptible to essentially what BoA did last game. But Dandy kind of changing gears here at a very opportune time. You know, I'm sure probably BoA looked back at some of the VODs and watched Dandy play. And, you know, Dandy mixing it up here is really throwing a wrench into BoA's plans. But BoA, this time around, went for the gate first, but he did open Zealot first here. So anticipating kind of a greedier opening from Dandy.
You know, back on BoA's side of the map, as you mentioned, Zealot is coming across. Range is coming in, or what we think is range, since there's no hidden pylon. I don't think there's going to be a fake here. I don't think it's weapon damage coming in for the Stargate. Now, can Dandy micro this? Zealot probe does not get on top of the first Marine. 3 Marines are now out, and after softening up the Zealot quite a bit, it is going to push it back. 4th Marine going to be coming out, but the first Goon is already out, so Dandy's got to be careful. Now, we do see that the SCV is hidden on the right side of the map. I thought maybe it's going to be for a proxy, but because Dandy has pulled off of gas, you can see that he doesn't have the 100 gas to go for it. Now, this is a bit troublesome for Dandy because there's no SCV supporting this. So Zealot is going to get focused down, but it does already deal 1 or 2 hits to these Marines. 2 Marines, 3 Marines are gone, and that's going to be all 4 Marines wiped off the map. And Dandy, or BoA, doesn't even have to push in any farther. The damage is done. He's forcing out way more Marines than Terran wants to build. This is going to be the 6th one coming out. I like what BoA is doing behind this. He's not going to, continue aggression. He's just going to take his Nexus. Luckily for Dandy, he does see that, so he will be able to respond appropriately.
Yeah, I'm surprised Dandy actually expanded, despite that. It's kind of weird here, the opening that Dandy chose to go for. He did make 4 Marines, which is an exorbitant amount. And not only that, but he did also try to make the bunker. Usually, you only see 3 Marines into the bunker. And he's up to like 5 or 6 at this point, so really delaying his build quite a bit. And BoA only had to sacrifice that 1 Zealot to do a lot of damage, and now he's already wailing onto the bunker. He's going to poke in, just confirm the command center. And now that he knows what's up, because honestly this was looking like a strong FD from Dandy, just from what BoA was seeing up until he saw the bunker, and also up until he killed the 4 Marines there. But now BoA knows this is pretty much a standard game here, and he's going into 2-gate, which Dandy does scout. So Dandy is gonna expect a bit of more pressure here at the front. But without the Robo coming in fast, there's not. Oh, actually no, this was Robo. Okay, I was gonna say the 2nd gate seemed a bit delayed here, but it is gonna be fast observers. So probably the most ideal build order choice here from BoA, because he's gonna get the observer straight into Dandy's base. He's going to confirm what's going on. And Dandy, despite losing those 4 early Marines, is still going for this kind of FD push.
Yeah, he's going to push out with 2 tanks, 1 Vulture, and mines. And I am not sure if BoA saw this or not. 4 Goons are in position, but we already saw that the Marines can soak up a lot of hits, as I was mentioning earlier. 1 Vulture can soak up a lot of hits too. 5th Goon coming out. Okay, 6th Goon. Now I think he has more than enough to deal with this. But if mines can get set up in position, this could deal a lot of damage. Yeah, I like this turnaround from Dandy, like kind of letting him know, like, hey, I'm here, so you got to be worried about me. But he's not going to push the issue. He does just turn around. Observer spots that the army has turned around too, so that's great for him. Now we got a glimpse into BoA's main. I didn't see support bay being put down later at all. Oh, there it is. So it is going to be Reaver follow-up.
Yeah, the support bay being built right here, and that move from Dandy is very nice. Pushing out there, usually kind of just confirming that there's no fast 3rd base from the Protoss. The Protoss can go for something like 1 gate into triple Nexus, which this kind of push would just straight up kill. And as soon as you poke to the front, see the Goon count at what it was, you can just come back to your base knowing that Protoss isn't getting away with too much. And from here, you're playing just a standard game. Now, Dandy, did he see that there was a support bay here? Usually you get the eBay with the 2 factories. This is very standard from Dandy. But, it is Sylphid, and it is hard to turret ring around your base here, because not only do you have to build a lot of turrets, but you also need to have vision over the ledges there, or else the shuttle can still run by a couple of these turrets. So, the one disadvantage to not getting early Goliaths here on this map is definitely that shuttles can dominate, and only now does the armory come up. BoA, meanwhile, is taking a 3rd base, so, off this Reaver, he's going to be very safe. He's going to be able to just get his infrastructure up, his economy up, and we'll have to see you know, most likely because it's Sylphid, all we're going to see from BoA is adding that, you know, third and fourth gateway, and then teching into Citadel, into Stargate.
We do see that the armory did finish just now for Dandy, so he is going to be going up into the upgrade style. I was thinking that this was going to be a 5-fact timing because he was putting up the turret ring. He skipped the academy for a long time, so that was saving him 150 minerals. But after seeing the army, that's not going to be the case. Academy coming in too, so it looks like we're going to be going into 3 or 4 base macro play from him. Now, just like on Polypoid, he's building tons and tons of turrets. Meanwhile, this time BoA is taking a relatively fast third base in comparison to Dandy. We do see Reaver is coming out. Zealots are already out, so he's going to be loading up for a drop. Now, I do not see gas taken at the natural for BoA, yet his gas is decently low, so he may have upgraded speed, which is a common move from the Protoss players these days. But overall, I'm really liking BoA's position because I don't think Dandy can really punish him for taking such an early third base.
Yeah, I mean, this is very well played here from BoA, and it doesn't look like Dandy is getting a command center, as far as I can tell, so kind of very weird here what Dandy's doing. Oh, now he's adding a bunch of factories, I think, so probably going to go for a timing. Oh, that's actually a starport, so really kind of probably looking at some kind of 7 factory 2 base play here from Dandy, or it could be a delayed third base. Meanwhile, BoA is accelerating his gateway count. Now, a more recent kind of shift in the PvT metagame has been that some Protosses choose to just skip Stargate and play very heavy gateway style early and kind of rely on Storms to scale them into the late game and Storm drops to keep the game on low eco so that the gateway account or the gateway army can really thrive here. So we are, you know, I'm looking out to see, no, and that's exactly what it's going to be because BoA is not actually going for a Stargate. So it looks like BoA, I think, probably was anticipating a fast third here from Dandy that he could bust, but Dandy's actually just staying on 2 base. So honestly, this is looking really good for Terran.
Yeah, Terran is going to be going up into the heavy factory style with the upgrades. It's going to be a slower 2-1, of course, because of the early games. We see that BoA was going for a double shuttle, may potentially go into triple shuttle sometime soon. But he knows now that definitely something is up since the third base has not been taken. As you mentioned, Templar Archive is just not going up. But Dandy saw the late Templar Archive, so he's not going to be too worried about facing an overwhelming amount of AoE, whether it's Stasis or whether it's Storm, when he actually pushes out. BoA is up 30 supply already, though, so that could be a hindrance to his attack. Like, when Dandy moves out, is he going to be maxed? How far down is he going to be versus BoA's max? So you know he's maxing out, like, what, within a minute or two?
Yeah, I mean, what do you think about this, Dan? Like, do you actually think being on 2 base, like, do you actually think going up the Arbiters or staying on Templar is better versus a dedicated 2 base like this?
I think in this particular scenario, because his Arbiter's going to be so late, he's going to have maximum 1 stasis in the attack.
He's
so
definitely not going Arbiter. Did you see?
Yeah, I know. Yeah,
okay.
I'm just saying, in the scenario that he goes Stargate, it's going to be maximum 1 stasis. I think for sure. Right. It's got to be Storm this time.
Yeah.
Now, you know, as I was watching this unfold from Dandy, I was like, I don't know if this timing is really going to work. But the more I'm looking at it, I don't necessarily think this is going to be him moving out with his first max. It may be, but he doesn't necessarily have to. He can just sit here and bank up tanks because he knows that Arbiters are not coming anytime soon. And really, once you reach like the 30 tank count, some absurd amount, you kind of need to have a lot of stasis, not just Storm, unless you have Zhongbi Storms, of course. Now I see Dandy moving out with some drop play, trying to make magic happen, but this time BoA's got cannons set up, so not going to have this success he's had in all the previous games. But like I said, this doesn't even necessarily mean Dandy's going to be moving out with his first attack. There's the Templars, as expected, so BoA does have Storm coming pretty soon.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you, Dan, but it is a very rare situation to see. The reality is that Terran can just sit here and max out on tanks, and the closer they get to that like crazy tank count, the worse the gateway army gets. And really, usually what forces Terran to like push out is either, I suppose, like getting up to like 6 arbiters or something, or the threat of possibly switching into carriers. But other than that, I mean, if Terran just sits here and makes an unkillable, kind of presents an unkillable wall against the Protoss, that could be a victory or win condition in and of itself. He might just sit on his side of the map and keep expanding here, and kind of just tell BoA, well, you know, you can win if you want to win this game, just come kill me. So we'll have to see. But I mean, judging from BoA's army is looking scary. You know, he has double shuttle here with a bunch of, or triple shuttle with a bunch of Templars in them, a bunch of gateway units, only +1, so nothing like double forge going here from BoA, which I think you could definitely go for in this situation. Now, the thing is, Dandy's upgrades are not looking too hot. I'm assuming 2-1's about to finish here. It is 14 minutes into the game.
Yeah, 2-1 should be finishing because that armory started at like 7 minutes. I'm sure he instantly started +2. So like 15 seconds from now, +2 is going to finish. Now, what I'm most worried about isn't even the Templars. It's the fact that we're sitting on mines while also having potential Templar drop. Now, here comes BoA. That is not as many tanks as I was expecting. The Vultures are flooding in from the back to come support, but where are the storms?
I don't even think the shuttle's unloaded properly. I think only 2 shuttles or 1 shuttle unloaded there. The Reaver died, the Templar died. No AoE to speak of, and what looked like it was going to be a dream engage from the Protoss just got completely destroyed by the Terran push, and now suddenly Terran's ahead in supply. Not just that, there's no stasis to work with. There's no like there's not crazy tech coming in here. Protoss took a terrible trade, and now he has to fight round 2 here, down supply. And again, I think there's more units in these shuttles. Finally unloading a couple of zealots on top of these tanks. They're gonna do work. The thing is, the Vultures aren't really on top of the tanks to defend them. And once these tanks unsiege, the thing is, BoA is kind of disjointed in his attack, and really just nothing left in those shuttles. The Templar never stormed. I wonder if he even forgot to research storm at this point. But Danny's just gonna plow through BoA. And man, what happened this game, dude?
Yeah, I didn't see the target fire onto the Templar. I'm thinking, like you said, maybe he forgot storm because there were none. There were no storms. Yeah, and now he's down 70 supply. Now he's sitting outside your choke. Protoss is going to go from 5 base down to 1 that's mined out. So this is going to be a 3-0 for Dandy.
Yeah, I mean, just completely obliterated here. And, to be honest, let's see if he actually storms. Yeah, I mean, the first couple of drops, I did see Reavers get unloaded on top of the tanks. I saw a couple of Templar get unloaded on top of the tanks. But they just kind of evaporated because some of the tanks weren't even firing the main Protoss army. It kind of just, the attack there from BoA, the execution just it wasn't really there. And, the thing is with this, I mean, we'll have to talk about this for a second, I guess. GG coming in from BoA, and that was going to be a really quick 3-0 from Dandy. Kind of surprise result. I mean, at least given the pundits' expertise here, the pundits' opinion, that BoA was going to take this series. Yeah, I don't know, man.
Well, the stream is delayed a little bit, so I sat there and watched the engagement again, and BoA did have storm. Because I saw him do the animation with the Templars. They moved their hands a bit. But what actually happened was Dandy picked off 3 Templars in an instant. None of them casted. So amazing focus fire from Dandy there, because really you would think that Protoss had a good shot there. Sure, there was a lot of tanks, like 15 tanks. But to get off no storms, that's amazing. And he also had triple shuttle bomb. And as you mentioned, it didn't look like he unloaded anything, so I don't know what happened to the unloads. And even in the follow-up attack, he didn't unload anything. So I don't know what was happening with those shuttles. They bugged out, and that's all Terran needed because he lost no tanks in the first engagement.
Yeah, I mean, it was honestly, because you even saw like the shuttles kind of be really close together, and sometimes You know, especially if you're nervous and you're not like, you know, you're playing with jitters and stuff like that. It's very easy to not be able to kind of have that small movement of your mouse to like click the different shuttles when they're bunched up like that. And you know, for sure, not all of three unloaded at the same time. And because we saw even in the second fight that, you know, one of the shuttles still had a couple of zealots in them. It's just so unfortunate, man, because I truly think BoA's nerves got the best of him in this series. Just doesn't have the same tournament experience as Dandy does, and Dandy showing that you know, he does look extremely composed in high pressure situations. He is capable of just executing very well in these situations, and you know, top 6 definitely a good result here for BoA in his first BSL. Really, it was his first BSL, and he already made it to top 6, and you know, he doesn't have that much tournament experience, so I think this was a great result for him. Meanwhile, Dandy, obviously kind of overcoming here, you know, in the round of 8, he did lose to BoA 0-2, so being able to 3-0 him is going to be really, really good for him, for Dandy's mental just in general, but he does have a really, really long road ahead to the title here. Now he's going to be playing Oya coming up.